even us, even though we explained, we have historical camps that we always reserve the right to go back and occupy. Even to this day, the park doesn't want us to go back and reoccupy those lands, even though we were here before the park. And now, what a part of what we had planned to highlight on this prayer walk is the Western Everglades Restoration Project. We call it WERP. That's the acronym. WERP, I think, was a part of what they call the yellow. I've never seen this yellow book, but apparently there's this yellow book that the Army Corps of Engineers uses. It's like the Bible of restoration for the Greater Everglades system. And that Western Everglades project was apparently one of the projects within all these other projects that were identified that needed to be done to restore the water flow, and reconnect habitats of the greater ecosystem of the Everglades. And many years that project sat on the shelf, and they dusted it off and felt that they were at a point where this project they need to look at it, try to design it to move forward. And you know, you think of, well, they're trying to restore the Everglades. That's a great thing, right? But you always have to look at what a project is and what it's going to do, and if it's going to be good or bad, if it's going to create more harm than it's going to do good. And I know our tribe, during the earlier talks, every once in a while they're supposed to have a government to government and have the tribes a part of the conversation. But a lot of times what happens is they figure out what they want to do, and then they tell you about it. And if you point out your concerns, they're like, oh, we heard. So they just make a documentation. They talk to you. It doesn't really, you know, that where they're supposed to incorporate your concerns or maybe make some changes doesn't really happen in reality. You know, they just make a notation that you had a concern. And that's something that needs to change as well, not just for Indigenous people, but people of the public as well, that your voice matters in a process. And what Indigenous people, what we keep encountering, and it frustrates those scientists that the tribe employs, because, you know, if they got scientists, you got to have scientists. If they got a lawyer, you got to have a lawyer. That seems to be how it goes. And so the tribe, for many years, because even today we're looked at, oh, they're just Indians, what do they know? And so the tribe started employing people with PhDs, master's degrees, and all these degrees. So when they trotted out their scientists, we trotted out our scientists, you know. And thankfully, the scientists that the tribe employs realized, in listening to the elders and going out into the Everglades, that maybe the Indians did know something, and changing their view and understanding of how an ecosystem works, instead of just going by what they learned in a book. Because nature's a great teacher. And because even today, they go to these meetings and they try to give the tribe's historical perspective and how we existed in this environment, it's considered anecdotal. You know, so it basically doesn't mean anything. But when you have living history of what the ecosystem was when someone was maybe 70 years ago, 100 years ago, and you're getting that consistent picture from a great number of people of what it used to be, maybe they're telling you something. And when they're seeing those changes over time, when they happen to start lining up with different events that occurred, whether it's building roads, or maybe it's putting in a canal or taking away a canal, and they started noticing that ripple effect after how things were changed, maybe there's something that needs to be listened to that. And so the Indigenous people now, you know, with the Western Everglades project, you know, we advocate for reconnection of the environment. But when you're reconnecting environment, it becomes concerning if you're going to reconnect that environment and use it as a way to just flush away, you know, more polluted water that somebody else doesn't want.
Oh.
And without having regulations in place that prevent the pollution from getting in there in the first place. And the state itself is one of the biggest polluters because they're spraying all these chemicals to kill the weeds, and it builds up in the soil, and the nutrients that were being removed from those plants when they die, put it back into the water and into the ground. So with the Western Everglades project, the modeling is questionable because they really don't have a lot of ground truthing done out here, and they modeled on using LiDAR, and they don't. If you ask them how much water you're going to put more, if they say 20%, 30%, okay, you're 30%. Can you tell me? I know I get this much water, so that 30% is going to be where now? This much goes to where? They can't tell you. But the people who grew up out here, whether they're indigenous or not, if they know what it naturally is and they go up to a specific area at any point in time in the year, they'll tell you about how much water you can get up in there. So when you're talking to them, they want to know if they get 6 inches, how much more when they're standing there, is it going to be to their knee or to their hip? But these experts can't tell you that. They'll give you a percentage, but that's a best guesstimate. And so that's very concerning with this project, that they don't have enough data to really know what they're going to do or what that result is, or even getting that anecdotal information of what people used to see back in the day. How much water was actually here? At what times of years did it really flow? Did it not flow? Or should it even have that amount? Those are questions that have to be answered, because I know they go historical record, they go computer data, and they do these modelings and these averages. But you know what's that saying? People have garbage in, garbage out. So you know, your end result is only as good as what you put into it. And so, in a computer is a dead thing. It's not alive. And so getting the natural system into that picture is very hard to get people to realize. You have to incorporate that part into the picture. Now with the Everglades Restoration Project, what the tribes and other people found out was that the people were going to lose their land again. You know, people lost their land with the creation of the preserve, but now they were looking at all inholders, all, A-L-L, that's a very important word, because it doesn't distinguish between any type of people, any group of people. It's just everybody lumped in together. And they were going to have to acquire properties to be able to do this project. And I think there's over 200, I forgot the exact number, but there's over 200 plus properties that they would have to take away from people.
They want an eminent domain sovereign land.
You got it.
That's it.
Just asking the crazy question.
But you know, it was a slap in the face to the tribe by these agencies, because they didn't do their required government to government to even let anybody know that that's what they were entertaining. After all these years, they've had a little meetings here and there to talk about the project, but somehow a letter got put out there in the iCloud and on social media, and that's how a lot of people found out. And you know, and also what is disconcerting is maybe the tribe got spoken to here and there, but there was a whole group of people that actually live out here, were never talked to, were never part of these, they call them stakeholders. I don't even like that word, stakeholder groups. And these government agencies and all these big NGOs didn't feel it was necessary to include these group of people who they were making plans to take their land. Not the